What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Jimmy James 59, and in this video I want to make some predictions for you for Age of Empires 2 in 2024, and then I also at the end will give you some suggestions that I think would be quite interessante for the game, so definitely stick around until the end so you can hear those. In 2023, your boy Jim Shadama's got a number of predictions right, and so that's one of the reasons why I thought this would be a good video to point out. I won't run through the entire list, but I definitely, when it comes to monks, when it comes to a lot of cav archer changes, some strange things like the Ethiopian stone cost and the outpost being removed. Heck, I even did a Georgian civilization concept video. Now, I know a lot of people have done Georgian civ concepts. I won't give myself credit for that, but in that video, I proposed the idea of a paladin replacement, and we saw with the reworked Persians with the Savar that actually happened. And I put that video out before the Return of Rome DLC when we saw the Legionary as a champion replacement. So I gotta give myself quite a bit of credit here. Now, let me start off with my predictions, and I'll just say that these predictions are not necessarily ones that I want to see come to the game, but they're just what I think is going to happen. So I don't really have any stock, and I'm not trying to persuade anybody that these are going to be good, though I actually think in a lot of cases they would. The first one is that I think that I could see some monk technologies having their costs change, and in particular, I'm looking at heresy. Heresy right now I think is 1,000 gold, and that just seems like a little bit much. Would not be surprised to see that one come down. Additionally, right, I talked about the Persians a little bit earlier and the Savar, and I think that this unit is still just a bit too strong. I suspect we'll either see its performance stats turn down just a bit, or maybe the upgrade costs become more expensive. Right now I'm leaning to the latter, but I think that we're going to see something along those lines. Additionally, when it comes to town centers, I think we've learned how to dodge TC arrow fire a bit too well, and it really wouldn't surprise me to see the speed or the accuracy of the arrows go up, so it's just a little bit easier to punish people who get onto your town center. What I wouldn't anticipate for that is more damage being added, because I think that would really throw off raiding in the mid-game. Additionally, I think the Georgians are going to be a civilization that in 2024 will receive balance changes to become a bit more versatile. Right now, the civilization is just a little too one-dimensional with the Manaspa, and I think that it's just, well, it's just not the funnest civilization to play, and so I do think we'll see the Georgian cav archer get some kind of bonus to get it on the menu and make this more of a two-dimensional civilization. And I actually think that would be something really great for the Civ, but you will have to nerf something about the Manaspa, I think, to do so. Fortunately, there's a lot of places in the Manaspa to nerf, whether it's their cost, their training time, maybe even how strong the regular version of the unit is. I think we could see something along those lines. I also foresee in 2024 a new Paladin civilization. Now, I have no idea what DLCs are on the table right now, but even if we don't get one, would not surprise me to see perhaps even an existing civilization receive access to the Paladin. The Paladin Club has become very exclusive in DE, and again, so it just would not surprise me to see one more Civ. And I think in the future I'll do a video on what I think the civilizations that would be decent candidates to receive Paladin. Additionally, I think we could see new Step Lancer civilizations. Now, people have talked about this one for a while. I think there's a lot of momentum for civs like the Huns, the Turks, or even the Magyars to get access here. Would not surprise me to see one of those three. And also, maybe even the Hindustanis I could see being up there, but hey, we'll see. Additionally, the Bengalis and the Dravidians, kind of staying in the dynasties of India here. There's a vein of thought that this is one of the weaker DLCs, and yet it's also the one that has the most civilizations. So there's a lot of room here if you maybe want to tweak the Bengalis and the Dravidians to boost up some of those sales numbers. See where I'm going here? Now, the Bengalis are a civilization that is seen as really dreadful on Arabia, but pretty decent on other map types. And the Dravidians are a civilization where their reputation as a not that great civ, I think, precedes them. Other than water, I just don't think they stand out in any category. And I will say, I actually don't think Bengalis and Dravidians are that bad of civilizations. I actually think both are probably kind of underrated, given what their reputation is, and a lot of fun to play. And when it comes to the Bengalis, I think this civilization probably just needs a small tweak, and I can see, say, getting the last infantry armor being just for the Doctor Order. The Dravidians are a harder civilization for me to figure out. I thought for a long time that their answer is in somehow buffing their light cavalry and making it more of a glass cannon unit at an earlier stage in the game, because it's definitely a glass cannon in the late game after you get Woot Steel. But, how many games go that deep, right? Maybe Woot Steel could be made cheaper, but it just feels like this civilization needs a little bit more of an answer. I don't know, maybe cheaper Woot Steel would be the answer, but we'll have to see with the Dravidians. I don't have a solid prediction there. I just think we're going to see balance changes. Staying on civilizations from DLCs that perhaps a number of people haven't purchased, I think the Romans are going to see some changes. Now look, let me say this up front. I think the Romans are a really well-designed civilization. They've got a nice win rate. I mean, I think that they fit the sort of historical theme that you would want for a civ, basically representing the Western Roman Empire, holding on for dear life, trying to reclaim its former glory. But unfortunately with the Romans, they're just not a very popular civilization. They're really not played all that much. And I think that part of the reason why is because a number of players probably just haven't picked up the DLC. The DLC that the Romans come in on really only adds Age of Empires 1 into the game sort of application. And that's probably just not a lot of incentive. So maybe making the Romans a bit more interesting is something that could cause players to purchase the DLC. I would be very careful how much I change the Romans in terms of maybe their themes or their identity, but I can see something happening. And last but not least are the Hindustanis. Look, I think the Hindustanis to me are just low-hanging fruit because it feels like the civilization is constantly being adjusted. When you go back and look at the OG Indians, right, the civilization used to be, I mean, it's been tweaked over and over again. So it just wouldn't surprise me nowadays to see it, especially because I think Hindustanis are a civ that have, they were, the best civ in the game, and then they got a bunch of nerfs, and they weren't, and then they got a little tweak here recently, and the Gulam was buffed again, and they're back up. I don't know. I just think that we're going to see more changes to the civilization. Don't know exactly what it's going to be, but something is probably going to happen. I've always felt that getting access to Parthian tactics would make a lot of sense for the playstyle, not really change their identity, but maybe that should actually go in my wishful thinking section for this list because, you know what, I've been saying it for a while, and if the devs are out there secretly watching this channel, first, say hi in the comment section to them, and also, they haven't been listening to that particular change. So, anyways, something to think about. Okay, so now what I want to do is give you a little bit of what I call wishful thinking in terms of some technologies or some changes that I think would make a lot of sense. And I want to start off linking two civilizations together, the Persians and the Celts. Here's a suggestion for you. I would like to see the Persians lose the trash bow as a unit and have Commanderin, right, be changed so that it restores the cavalry units getting gold for killing other military units. And the trash bow, though, instead, I think should be a unit that the Celts get access to. I think that this swap, so to speak, or maybe not really a swap for the Persians, but they get something else restored and they, gift the Celts something. I think it makes sense for a number of reasons. First of all, the Persians don't need the trash bow. They already have hand cannons, and their skirmishers are only missing bracer. And so I just think that trash bow feels a bit superfluous for this civ. The Celts, on the other hand, do need the trash bow. You don't have hand cannon, and your foot archers are not very good. Trash bow would also not change the Celts' identity. They'd still be an infantry civilization, they just have an interesting unit to support your infantry pushes. Additionally, there's a historical basis given the usage of, say, peasant archery in Scotland that also makes a lot of sense. Now, I do think Celts might need to get access to Thumb Ring to make this work, and hey, I think that would be a worthy change made if we go ahead and give them trash bow. Additionally, the Celts also have the wood chopping bonus that I think would also have the eco to really support adding in trash bows to your army. And I think sometimes with Persians, at least a lot of times when I play them, I find that I often don't have a lot of that wood because my town centers are working so fast that I really need to make a lot of farms to keep that production going so they're not just going idle. And it's just kind of hard for the Persians to take into. Whereas it would be a lot easier for the Celts to take into. And I think that the cavalry generating gold bonus actually is kind of a nice one for the Persians once they've already boomed out. I think that in the early stages of the game, right, maybe it's not so good, but once you've boomed out with the Persians, having something else you could get that could get you a little bit extra income, I think could be pretty cool. The second wishful thinking here is that I think the Mongols should lose access to the night line. Now, this is one folks have talked about for a while, and maybe I should put this in my prediction category, but at the same time, I just don't see it really happening. And so I'm going to put this in my wishful thinking because I can't think of the last time that Mongols, whether I played them or went up against them, that the Mongols made knights. And between steppe lancers and light cavalry with extra hit points plus camels, the Mongols already have a pretty good stable. Now, I think this would be a really big move for the tech tree, and I think there's already a sense that Mongol steppe lancers are a little overpowered. So I could see some tweaks in there, right? If I were going to go back and say that I had another prediction for the Mongols, it might be that their light cavalry HP gets some kind of staggered effect, so that way Mongol steppe lancers aren't so abusive, right, in the mid game. So that being said, though, I think if the steppe lancer got some kind of small nerf, so it wasn't so overpowering for the Mongols, and if the Mongols lost access to knights, then you'd need to compensate the Civ in some way. And I've got a suggestion for you. We changed the Nomads technology, which is really one of the worst in the game, and make it so that their cavalry archers and camels, not Mangudai, keep in mind, get +1/+1 armor, right? So 1 melee and 1 pierce. What this would do is it would make the cavalry archer an alternative to the Mangudai instead of just an obsolete unit. Mongol cav archers would be that tanky, durable option, while Mangudai would be your high damage output, maybe a better raiding option, maybe a better fire support option, right? Additionally, this would give your camels just a bit more survivability, but it wouldn't make up for missing that +1 armor, or excuse me, +2 armor that you get in Imperial Age. The Imperial Age, you would still have -1 pierce armor on both your cavalry archers and your camels, and that would be a big deal. But this would at least give a little bit of differentiation between the cav archer and the Mangudai, and I also think make Mongol camels, which are something you see with the civilization a lot, just a little bit better, though still lagging behind other civilizations. Coming up next, I think that we're going to probably, I can see the Tarkins getting something of a balance change. Now, they recently got a balance change to make them faster, and I think that that's really cool. But I honestly think that the cost of the Tarkins is just a bit high. And I would really like to see that cost go down just a bit. Maybe be, 50 gold. Honestly, maybe even 45 gold. It's just 45 is probably a little bit too low. Maybe something, but 50 feels like a sweet spot to me. Maybe even increase the food by by 5 just to kind of compensate a little bit. I just think it's a little too pricey on the gold cost, and many of the cavalry unique units in the game have a much lower gold cost, things like the Keshik, the Lidus, the Manaspa I just mentioned. And I just wish we saw Tarkins in the game a little bit more. And because they're not the best melee fighter, this would be a really nice change. I'll also, give you some wishful thinking. I'd love to see a Cavalier in the game that has a unique bonus, probably a technology in Imperial Age, that gives them trample damage. We've got a lot of civs in the game now as the Paladin Club has become more rarefied air. That we've seen civilizations now have stronger than average Cavalier. Bulgarians, Burmese, Malians, Sicilians, and Romans all get interesting bonuses. These civilizations also like the Paladin upgrade. I don't mind the Paladin Club being one of the more exclusive, but, making Cavaliers a little bit more interesting for certain civilizations that rely upon them a bit more is probably a good thing. Additionally, we've also seen the trample damage bonus as a mechanic a bit more lately. The Poles with their winged hussars, Slavs Druzina tech has been made cheaper, and recently the Ratha now has trample damage. I think trample damage is a nice way of giving a unit a power spike, and it really does seem like a no-brainer to me to give it to a civilization with, Cavaliers that also has that trample damage. So, which civ should get access to it? If it were up to me, I think I'd give it to the Romans. I think what you could do is rework the Comita Tens's technology, which just feels kind of awkward for the Romans right now. And I'm not sure I've ever watched a game where I saw it researched, maybe one or two. And what this would do is it would really make Cavaliers the shock cavalry of the Romans, and that would differentiate it from the more command role unit of the Centurion. And so we would distinguish between those two units. So you're making Centurions really so that way, you want them to help your infantry be stronger. But if you want to play that cavalry route with the Romans, having trample damage would be nice. And it would also throw back to the Byzantines in the Eastern Roman Empire, whose cataphracts in Imperial Age can get trample damage as well. So again, I think there's a lot of nice parallels there, and it'd be great to see. Now, one final suggestion that I would make, and this is not necessarily one that I want in the game, I would say. I don't know if it's a good idea, but I would suggest that we find some way to think about and I'm going to butcher the pronunciation here, but the Kazalbesh warrior be added somehow into the game as maybe a regional unit. When the Mountain Royals DLC came out, we saw this particular unit show up in the promotional material, and a lot of hype was that the reworked Persians were going to receive some kind of modified Step Lancer, but it turned out to only be a scenario editor or a campaign unit. Now, part of the reason I'm suggesting this unit in particular is that it actually has some cool functions. This is a little bit of bonus damage versus archers, maybe to reflect the sort of Persian team bonus, but it's like the Cataphract in that it absorbs anti-cavalry damage, and I think that gives the unit a really interesting role, and it would just be interesting to the game then that we saw it somewhere. I'd love to see how it performed. And in fact, I think there's probably a number of units in the scenario editor that are only playable there that might be interesting to see in the game. Or perhaps that's a video for another time. I do think you'd have to change the Kazalbesh warrior, or I'll just call it the Q warrior. But I think you have some balance changes, but I think it could be pretty cool. That being said, that's the video, guys. Hope you really, really enjoyed it. And I'm going to try to do some more videos here. Probably going to do my mid-Elo Arabia tier list here in the next few weeks. And I have a lot of civilization concept designs as well, because I don't think we're done adding civilizations to the game. And I really want to throw some out there. So those developers that are watching, right, you can have really some of the best ideas going forward. And hey, it's fun to think about. That being said, guys, I'm Jimmy James 59. I hope you're enjoying your new year, and I'll see you up in the ladder. Peace.